going to use the sketch from a few days ago and take it into another level. So I'm just going to review a little bit because these are really items that bear repeating. That we have, I used a 1 inch grid, 1, 2, 3, 4 heads for the upper body, 1, 2 to the knee, 1, 2 to the ankle. And that creates a balanced fashion figure. Remember that if she's not wearing high heels, her feet can just end, right after the 8th head. That's the ankle line. But if she's in high heels, it can extend as far as another head, giving you 9 heads. That's up to you. And remember that the length proportions exist in relationship to width proportions. So you can build up this figure into a wider hip, wider torso, whatever. These are just length proportions. You can really customize your body. It can be more of an hourglass shape, more of a straight up and down androgynous shape. You can add a maternity belly to it. You can add fullness all around. There's a lot you can do with it. Okay, but it's definitely a women's figure. It doesn't work so well for children's or men's, but we're going to talk about those proportions also in other films that I'll be putting up. Now the thing is, I have this page and I can use it as a proportional sheet that I can use again and again and again to sketch designs onto. So what I want to do is I'm going to be using a tracing method where I take another sheet of paper that I lay over. Now granted, you've got to remember you can't do that with just any kind of paper. So very commonly used in design studios is actually photocopy paper from the printer. You can use that, but I like to work on a larger scale. So this is sketch paper. Sketch is a less expensive quality and a lighter weight than drawing paper is. If you buy a drawing paper, you won't be able to trace through it. Drawing paper is thicker and it has a nice tooth to it, but it's much too heavy to trace through. Sketch paper you can trace through. And again, my techniques and proportions, it all works on copy paper too. If you just want to pull some paper out of your printer, you'll be all set. But do you see that the figures are peeking through? See that? Now the thing is, you've got to build up your bottom drawings in order for this to really work. So I'm going to come back with the side of my pencil, which we've been practicing that anyway, using the side of the pencil. And I'm going to build up the darkness of this figure. And again, I feel very strongly about the fact that I don't want to have a figure that is created just from outlines. Because I find that the biggest problem I have with some students' drawings is that their figures are so linear, they lack a depth and they feel very flat, unsophisticated. If we can build up this figure with by having her be a solid black form, like I said, a clay form, a sculpture rather than a drawing, then we can use her as the basis for drawings. Okay, so I'm still building her like a sculpture. Okay, and making her darker is going to help me with the next step of when I want to trace over, which I can do for years to come. In fact, you can also, scan. In fact, I think I'll make a printable for you guys so that you can print this as a PDF. But what I'm going to do is build it up, and then I can photocopy and or scan it so that I have a cleaner copy too, because you know how these pencils, they smudge a lot. With this kind of coloring in, notice I'm using the side of my paper and then I'm drawing with my arm, not with my fingers. So this is something that I want you to practice so much. You can use ellipses to create the shapes. You can use lines. And another thing you can do is give yourself a few different arm poses, if that doesn't get too confusing to you. So I might add like a straight arm too. And when I do, I want to make it really clear like where the wrist is. So that's another pose that I can use. Okay, I've given myself 2 arm poses on the one sketch. If you find that's too muddy, too cloudy for you, just don't do it. So now I have arms that are straight down and arms that are akimbo. And I'm going to come now to the next girl and do the same. Make her darker. This also just gives me it's like an exercise that gets me back into my body, defining the shapes, getting specific about the edges. Where's the bust? Where's the pelvis bone? Where are the hard edges of the body? Where is the body soft? And kind of, as you get darker with the shape, it becomes more specific. You might say, "Oh wow, when I really black this in, I don't like the shape as much as I thought I did." And that comes from stepping away and coming back to a drawing can really help clarify that for you. And who knows, maybe I'll speed this portion up when I post this. But I really do think that taking the time and watching someone draw in real time is actually very valuable, so I may not do that. Okay, good. And now we're coming up through the torso, coming back. And you'll notice that the bust was here. She's slightly rotated in the upper body in this pose I created. The center front is not really in the middle. Okay, now I have two figures. Another good way to test your figures, if not just by blacking them in, you could reverse them and like hold them up to a mirror. And if you don't like the way that they look when they're reversed, that's another good way to catch yourself if you've been making an error. So I have these two figures. I could darken the mannequin as well. You know what I'm going to do with the mannequin, just for variation, is I'm going to just darken the outer edges. You can also notice that I'm using a drawing board today. So I'm not drawing flat on a table. This is much more sustainable, ergonomic for your body to use an angled table. And that's why drafting tables are so important, so popular in the first place. I'm actually using a drafting table, but because I like to put things all over my table, I do not, like my SpongeBob cup, I don't like to angle my table. I'd rather use a drawing board that I keep in my lap. That's a personal preference. I'm also going to define the lines that are on the mannequin, the princess lines, for reference. And I'm going to keep these lines. And I'll just have that as another piece to sketch off of. So the next step is I'll bring my paper over. And of course, now that I've darkened my figures, it's much clearer what's lying beneath. And the next step of that can be the fun of developing a collection of sketches. I can use these figures in any order I want to create designs around a concept.